I just pre-ordered the Canon EOS R6 and let me tell you why. Hi everyone, my name is Jesus Rivera and welcome to my channel JRM Tech Gear. In today's video, I will be discussing the reasons why I decided to order the Canon EOS R6 instead of buying the R5 or the EOS R. If you don't know the type of work that I do with cameras, I am an event photographer and I do some videos for these events. My first camera was the Nikon D3100 and then I upgraded to the D3300. Then when I wanted to do more videos and I wanted to get into a YouTube game, I ended up buying me a camcorder, which is the Sony AX33. From there, I decided that I wanted a hybrid camera, something that I can use for both stills and videos. I ended up buying this Canon M50. I sold the Nikon and I ended up with this camera and I love this little camera. This camera is a workhorse of a camera. It's an APS-C camera, a CMOS sensor, and it was a great camera. But then when I wanted to upgrade my game a little more and I wanted the colors to match a little better, I ended up selling the Sony AX33 and bought another Canon M50 in which I'm recording with right now. Then I decided that I wanted to get into a full frame game to upgrade my game, and then I ended up buying this Canon EOS RP. I wanted to buy the R, but it was a little too expensive for me, so I ended up buying the RP, and I love the RP. It takes amazing images and it's just a camera that I can take with me anywhere. It's very lightweight for a full frame and it's just absolutely beautiful. So my next step was to buy the Canon EOS R. And the main reason was because of C-Log. I wanted the Canon EOS R for C-Log and I wanted to upgrade my game. That's when I heard that Canon was gonna come out with the brand new cameras, the Canon EOS R5 and 6. When I saw the specs, the R5 blew my mind. But then when I started looking a little more deeper, I felt that the R6 met more of my needs. First of all, the R5 is a $3,900 camera, whereas the R6 is a $2,500 camera, which is a $1,400 difference. The R is on the cheaper side, in which is $1,800. So then I started thinking, well, should I buy the R? Is the cheaper of the three? But then I started thinking, well, the R6 has all the brand new features that the R doesn't have. Yes, the R has 30 megapixels and the R5 has 45 megapixels, whereas the R6 only has 20 megapixels. But that could be, a positive instead of a negative. First of all, I don't do a lot of cropping, so I don't need 45 megapixels or 30 megapixels. And the 20 megapixels make this camera, the R6, a better camera in low light situations, which I shoot on a lot. Another reason I went with the R6 is because of the fast continuous shooting. This camera shoots 12 frames per second mechanical shutter and up to 20 frames per second in electronic shutter. This RP only shoots 4 frames per second, whereas the R shoots up to 8 frames per second. This M50 is pretty fast and it shoots up to 10 frames per second, and the R5 shoots the same as the R6 at 12 frames per second mechanical and 20 electronic. So it is very similar to the R5, and that is a positive. Also, another reason that I went with the R6 is because it shares the same sensor and processor as Canon's flagship camera, the 1DX Mark III. We talk about the 20 megapixels sensor and the Digic X processor that both cameras share. For me to have a 1DX Mark III, it will be a dream come true, and this R6 comes very close to that camera in features. Another reason that I decided to go with the R6 instead of the R is because it has IBIS. The R does not have IBIS. This R6 has IBIS, and you can get up to 8 stops or stabilization in IBIS. Whereas the R, you only have the digital IS. So as the Canon M50 and the RP. Also, for videos, the R6 shoots in 4K up to 60 frames per second, whereas the R only shoots in 24 frames per second. Yes, the R5 shoots in 4K up to 120 frames per second, but again, that's gonna cost you $1,400 more. Also, the R5 shoots in 8K, but my camera doesn't even handle 4K very well, so it's definitely not gonna handle 8K. The R shoots in 24, 30, and 60 frames per second in 1080, whereas the R6 shoots in 24, 30, 60, and 120 frames per second for that 4x slow motion. Another reason that I went with the R6 was because of the crop factor. The R gives you a 1.7 crop factor in 4K, whereas the R6 only gives you a 1.07 crop factor. That means on the EOS R that in 4K, a 50mm lens will be the equivalent of an 85mm, whereas on the R6, that 50mm will only become a 53.5mm. And the more distance of the lens, the more the crop factor. For example, an 85mm on the EOS R on 4K will be the equivalent of a 144.5mm, whereas the R6, that 85mm, will only become a 90.95mm. So there tells you that the R6 covers almost the entire sensor when you are shooting on 4K. Also, another reason is for ergonomics. The R6 is very similar to this RP, which I enjoy a lot. It keeps this dial right here, whereas the R has the screen, so as the R5, and I'm not used to the screen. So this right here makes it very similar to this RP, and it'll be very easy for me for workflow to use if I'm using the RP or the R6. Another strength of the R6 is that in this area, it has a joystick that you can use for focus points when you're shooting with it, whereas the RP doesn't have it, and the R has a touch bar that everybody hated. And the R6 has a faster autofocus as it uses the new generation of the dual pixels autofocus system. The RP, the M50, and the R are great in autofocus, but the R6 and the R5 are just faster. And the final reason that I decided to go with the R6 was because of the dual slots for memory cards. The M50, the RP, and the R only hold one slot for memory cards, whereas the R5 and the R6 hold a dual spot for memory cards. The R6 holds dual card slots for UHS 2 cards, whereas the R5 holds 2 slots for UHS 2 cards and CF Express cards. And let me tell you, the CF Express cards are very, very expensive. So I'm saving more money with the R6. Now, those are the reasons why I pre-ordered the R6. Once I get the camera, I will do an unboxing video. I will do a lot of tests, and hopefully it's a decision that I'm gonna cherish and I'm not gonna regret. So if you like this video, if you like this content, if you want to learn more about the R6 once I get it, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment in the bottom section and tell me which camera do you want. Do you want the R5, the R6, or do you want the Sony a7S III? The reason I didn't get to Sony was because all the lenses, all the gear that I have is for Canon. So switching brands, it will be too hard for me. So therefore I'm sticking with Canon. So I'm not gonna compare with the Sony because it will be unfair for me to compare with it. But again, leave your comments in the bottom, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share with your friends. Now it will be till next time, so peace.